Hello, everybody, and welcome to this broadcast. I am very excited to tell you that the book I've been working on, World Horoscopes for 2023, is now ready. As you can see there, it's up on Amazon. It's obviously on all the Amazons across the world. In the US, it's $2.99. In the UK, it's about $2.69. I think that must be the American page I've got up there. It's on Kindle, but I am bringing out a paperback. It should be out tomorrow because I'm just busy finishing the formatting. So I'd just like to take you through that a little bit. And then I think we'll have a little bit of a chat about various things. So I'd be very, very grateful if you supported me by not only buying it, but leaving a brief review. It's very simple to leave a review. Just click the number of the stars, short title, just say whatever you want to say there. If like I say, just give your feedback. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It can be as lengthy or as short as you like, but it really helps the algorithm to have a couple of good reviews on there. And it's fantastic if you buy it. Now, what I'm going to do is on Monday and Tuesday, I'm giving it away for free because I know it's really tough times. So for all of you who'd prefer a free copy of Kindle, I can't give the paperback away for free because of how Amazon works. That would be great. But if you can buy it before then, that's also fine. After Monday and Tuesday, goes back to that price, which is quite reasonable. But try and get it sooner because I think, as it goes on, I'll put the price a bit up for other people who are not my regular peeps. Okay, let me tell you, I won't read you the blurb there, but I quite like that cover in the end. I know you won't see it if I put it up because my face will come there. But anyhow, it's 2023 predictions, astrology and geopolitics, politics, events, economics and culture. So I've got quite a bit in there. Okay, let's see what we've got. There's that picture coming up. Let's see. Where's this thing that says look inside? Oh, we have to go down. There you go. That's moving along well. So I've got 23 different countries, which I'll reveal to you. And I've got about a 10,000 word introduction. And I go over all the recent big conjunctions and explain what I believe they mean for the future. If you've been a regular watcher of mine, some of this will be familiar to you, but I think this is a fantastic recap with a little bit extra in there. I must tell you, I was a little bit nervous of writing this because you can imagine you're like normie maybe getting a hold of it. Probably won't, but they probably open it up and expect me to be talking about this sort of new age waffly stuff about the Great Awakening in terms of all this wonderful kumbaya stuff that's going to be happening and how the hero Zelensky is going to march to victory and, well, they're going to be a little disappointed because it's not like that. It's quite hard boiled for your average person. So I have warned them in the blurb there that this isn't sort of hold hands and wander down the yellow brick road stuff, although I don't want to make out it's all negative. It isn't. So in terms of countries, I've done the UK, United Kingdom, obviously UK is United Kingdom. The US now, just to note, remember I said they're going to start edging Biden out over the Christmas period, but do you note these leaks where he's been leaving classified documents in his Corvette and something about them on top of a building above a steakhouse and all this nonsense? I feel that they've been sitting on these for quite a while and they've leaked them now. Just remember when they wanted to get rid of Boris Johnson, they'd been sitting on those photos at the parties they were having during lockdown, and they weren't releasing them until the time was just right, and they used that to edge him out. They've also been sitting on these things about Biden, and now they're going to kind of edge him out. Plus, he looked totally unhinged the other day when he was saying that, the January the 6th minor little skirmish had worldwide ramifications. Did it? Could you care to elaborate? And why was your nose like someone had pushed in plasticine dojo? Really weird. So next up, there is a prediction for the EU, Australia, Brazil, Germany, China, Italy, France, Israel, Iran, India, Pakistan, Russia, Ukraine, Holland, Ireland, Taiwan, Japan, Turkey, Egypt, Syria, Singapore, and NATO. And what I did with a lot of countries is an April ingress chart and then the country's birth chart. I didn't do that for everyone, and I haven't followed the exact same approach for every country, just because, countries are different. Some countries are quite young in terms of the chart we're using for them, and therefore you can't go back over history to check for matching years. Other countries, they have two different charts, so I've looked at those. I've done it a little bit differently for each country. I'll just say that what I've done too is many people may read the book and think that some of the stuff I've guessed based on knowledge of politics and stuff. So I've tried to back up why I'm saying what I'm saying through reference to transits, arcs, and also what years were similar in terms of the astrological synchronicity. So I've got a section under most countries saying matching years, where I mention years in the past which are very similar in terms of the astrological triggers, and I mention what happened in those years and what information we can try and glean from that. So that you might find interesting. So there's a lot of information in there about geopolitical stuff, so it's not just astrology, but it's certainly got a very big astrological emphasis with some pretty decent predictions for each country in terms of, I haven't got, I was looking at Adams, what's her name? Astrologer Adams, anyway. It's some predictions she'd made for New Zealand, and we're nothing burgers, really, absolutely nothing going on there. So I didn't want to be like that. So guys, very grateful. Obviously, if you can't afford the $2.69, don't buy it. But if you're on Kindle and Unlimited, that won't bother you because you're already paying your subscription. So if you can afford to buy it, great. Otherwise, wait for the free day. So it's good for everybody, and it will be out in paperback if you'd prefer that as well. So now we've chatted about that, I wanted to talk about some other stuff that's been going on. Now, not to go on about the Harry thing, but I just feel it's a bit of an elephant in the room. How can we discuss the recent events without kind of mentioning it? So I've really only followed the headlines. I did watch the interview on ITV, only because George Galloway was saying, oh, it's going to be on. And so I thought, well, maybe have a little look, just dip in, see what's going on there. So Harry is having a Neptune transit at the moment as well. And I think that this is ill-advised on the basis of this Neptune square the Sun, because it's just so, it's too much, it's oversharing, it's too much information, and it's only going to harm him in the long run. And I feel that under the Neptune transit, he's operating under a delusion and bad advice. So that would be my input, although this isn't really a chart reading, it's a chat. I am going to do Harry and Meghan and look at their synastry chart, because you guys will be quite interested in that. I think it's her Mars is totally triggered by his descendant. It's almost exact. So it's almost like anger and siege mentality is part of what binds them together. Although, there's quite a lot going on of attraction between their chart. But I think we'll unravel that definitely. Now, that we say, to continue discussion about Harry, with the medical establishment, that a cured patient is no longer profitable for a doctor. So it's no good for these pharmaceutical companies to cure people. They need to kind of keep them on the meds. And it's sort of the same with psychologists and therapists, because a cured, happy patient is no longer a customer. So I think that there's a theme, not only with Harry, but with all this psychology, counseling, therapy field, to keep people in this mindset of dredging, wallowing, harping on every of the tiniest things, looking to sort of scrape the barrel in terms of every little thing, and to overinterpret it and ascribe all sorts of meanings to people's intentions and motivations, and to just collapse into a tornado of angst that never really goes away. I think that is a lot of what's going on. There's a lot of oversharing there. There's a lot of hype over inconsequential little things. An awful lot of it, as I say, to be honest, most of it is nothing really unusual. In fact, I've got an idea for Harry. He should try and enter the Guinness Book of Records for the most boring life, because not a lot has really happened. Many of these stories I've heard related are extremely mundane, and much of what's going on in terms of the dynamic with the family, with William, it's simply stuff every family goes through. It's not very, very specific to him. So I feel there's a lot of that going on. But I also get this feeling that he likes to paint this picture of it's for his closure, it's for his mental health. He needs to tell the truth. He needs to put his side of the story. He needs to be honest. Even the whole ill-advised 25 Taliban thing. If that's not like a itch you do not scratch, it's that one anyway. But even that, he says it's part of his healing. He had to talk about it for healing. And I'm thinking, yes, everyone pretty much on this planet has some form of unhappiness, trauma, issue in their life. And they've got to deal with it in various ways. Some people use religion and prayer. Some people find meditation very helpful. Other people immerse themselves in sport or charity work or something. But what you don't have to do is to put it in a book to make money. because I feel the bottom line here is money. All this healing and honesty and truth-seeking and closure, that can happen without putting in a book for public consumption. Isn't that so? That can happen privately and should happen privately or within the family arena. But the fact that it's out there for everyone to read in the world, it's like being a total exhibitionist. Makes me think, no, this is all about the money, and it's about grasping at every little potentially salacious, although not very, detail that he can put in there. And it's all just very petty about whether he wears a beard or not. Oh, he says Meghan wouldn't recognise him when he walked up the aisle if he didn't have his beard on. Who the hell did she think it was going to bloody be? Do they think they're going to use the arena of a royal wedding to play a prank on her? I mean, they're getting married. They're not going to sort of hook up for their very first date because they met online at a smoky nightclub when it's very dark, you know? It's a wedding. Who else does she think's going to pitch up in the aisle? Come on. It's not even remotely feasible or funny. I know, it's stupid. Fights over bridesmaids' outfits. Come on. So I think he's getting very bad advice. I think he's being pushed into this. The extent to why they're doing it, you've heard my theories about it's some form of Bolshevism to discredit and maybe get rid of the royal family because of the way society is moving. You've heard me talk about that. Although on the other hand, it's momentously backfiring, although everyone's making a lot of money that's involved. So maybe from that point of view, they're happy. You know, what I also don't like is he's very anti-gun and anti-Second Amendment, not very keen on the Constitution, which apparently he thinks is dumb. Pot, kettle, black, Harry. But I note when he was arriving for an interview with that appalling, ghastly man, untalented as well, Stephen Colbert, he had the security guards there with the Glock box. So he wants his armed security to look after him, but he doesn't want you to have a gun for your security. In addition, he was bellyaching about his very small, embarrassingly small, two-bedroom apartment at Kensington Palace. Yes, but he probably wants you to live in one of those vile pods that one of Elon Musk's companies are producing, and then a little bit bigger than a caravan, and this is their great idea for people to be living in big fields. He wants that for you, right? But two-bedroom apartment at Kensington Palace is not good enough for him. So you have this terrible elitist hypocrisy going on with him, not only to mention that he'd prefer you never travelled again and just sat in your 15-minute city while he globetrots in his private planes, because he's important, you see. He is entitled and important, you're not. So climate change and no guns and all that palaver, that's for you, the small, piddly people. You know, I just don't like this attitude. And I think that he's not doing anything charitable throughout this. He talks about his service. What? It's all self-serving, let's be honest. And what was the other gripe I was going to say? You know, I feel if he wants to make his mark on the world, and he wants to prove that he's a man, that he's different from the royals, that he's got something important to do, come out and speak on an important world issue. And I can suggest one, right? He'll never do that, because at the end of the day, he's one of them. And I don't have time for any of them, any of the royals, because they're all the same. They're all pushing agendas that will ultimately enslave, impoverish, and limit the life expectancy and life experience of ordinary people. And I don't even like that phrase, ordinary people, because no one's more ordinary than that person, the spare. So we're talking the 99% or whatever. You know, I just don't... dear, that's how I feel about it. If he wants to do something important, pick an issue, do your research properly, and then expose it. There are plenty of issues, which are called conspiracies, but there are plenty of them on the table that he could spend his time exploring, exposing, and could do an enormous a lot of good. But you won't catch him near any of those, so waste of time. I hear Alex Jones was on with Piers Morgan. I don't know why Alex would do it. It's obviously a trap. Apparently it was nearly all about, you know, that place in Connecticut where there was a, you know, shooting. I won't even mention it on YouTube. Yeah, so I mean, oh dear, I don't think Alex should have done that. You're never going to be able to get one over a idiot like Piers Morgan, because they're always going to have their snooty little sniffy comments that they're going to use to put you down, and it's not like a fair debate, is it? So yeah, but I'm going to watch that and see how it went. Now I had a few more little talking points for you guys. I wanted to talk about You know, this whole Ukraine thing, one aspect of it that hasn't been mentioned a lot is an awful lot of very, very, very young and fit and healthy men are being killed and maimed. And isn't Ukraine known for organ harvesting? That's potentially very, very, very profitable. You've got fit young men dying on the battlefield, or maybe civilians as well, that could be younger. I realize there's a logistical problem with getting the bodies in time to save the organs, but if you have injured people who rescued and they subsequently die, you can harvest those organs. I would think in a wartime arena there's an awful lot of that going on. It's quite despicable, and it's another reason why this may be continuing. So I did hear a theory that there was a time when the Bolsheviks were running the Soviet Union that they were a bit low on cash and they needed a loan from Rothschild. This is what I've heard, allegedly. So Rothschild said yes, but the collateral, or the kind of mortgage, would be on the area that's now Donbass and Donetsk, that sort of area, right? And so that area was now earmarked for the Rothschild. They almost had a bond over that area. But you'll also remember that under, was it Nikita Khrushchev, he gave that area to Ukraine and put it within Ukraine's borders. And someone thinks that was a kind of escape clause, right? So he didn't have to give those areas to Rothschild. But maybe that's why there's such an interest in that area, because there's this pre-existing bond that Rothschild have there. And some people have suggested they almost want loads and loads and loads of people killed there to clear that area out so they can use it for other reasons. Whatever, bearing in mind it's extremely fertile in terms of soil, got a lot of industry, a lot of potential, historical interest for certain people, could be. And yes, so I wanted to mention that. Yeah, another trick that people mustn't fall for, but which was used by the Soviets, is making everything feel inevitable, right? So when it all seems too much, and when people are just like Schwab out there saying the great reset, it will happen, and you can do nothing about it, we are not going back to the old normal, this is a fiction, and whatever. This is all part of the making it feel to the ordinary, don't want to use that word, to the greater public that it's inevitable. But it isn't, so don't fall for it. It's their insecurity talking. They want to lull you into thinking it's inevitable, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because your actions will reflect your despondency and they get what they want. So keep that in mind. I see there was a very interesting thread. Now, Matt Hancock had stood up in Parliament and talked some bull about Andrew Bridgen, the very good MP who's been standing up and talking about the data on the sudden deaths and whatnot. And he's been publicising what cardiologists have been saying, getting a huge amount of flack from nearly every MP on all parties, which just goes to show you where all their bread is buttered and who they are. But Matt Hancock in particular, also Sunak, also Sajid Javid, also Nadine Zawahiri, all having an onslaught on him, calling him anti-Semitic and anti-this and anti-vax and conspiracy theorist, all these weak slander terms which are absolutely meaningless. They have just weaponized these words and used them at grenades, but they're losing their effect. So if anyone calls you any of these things, just water off a duck's back. Don't even comment. Don't argue with them because they're just using them to slander you. And most of the time, as in this case, everything was just totally inappropriate to the argument anyway. But the most important thing about that, I can leave a link to the tweet that Matt Hancock put out saying all these words and these slurs against Bridgen. Well, I read for ages through the comments, not one in favour of Hancock. It's all like, we see you, history won't be kind to you. Very eloquent, well-worded, sensible and informed comments coming back at him, not a single one of support. So the government is seeing that and they must be very, very worried. It's also prevalent in threads to Zawahiri and Javid, or anyone else who's sort of tweeting this sort of garbage and vitriol at Andrew Bridgen, just because he's raising extremely valid concerns that the general public certainly know need to be raised. These politicians are so out of touch and so isolated. They are scared now. Even their shills in the media, and I've got one for you that's already turning. I was really surprised at this. Look at this here. There's a tweet here. There we go. It's the Reclaim Party, a statement from Andrew Bridgen, that you can see. And no less than James Whale says, hope people will listen to this. Now, James Whale, back in the early 2000s, was a very good presenter who would regularly speak to David Icke and would consider conspiracies like with 9/11. So he used to be good. Then he kind of lost his job for going too far during an election. Details aren't important. Then he became the worst chill, and during COVID he's been deplorable. The way he's mocked and talked to so-called anti-vaxxers or skeptics, disgusting. But look at the turnaround. Now, he has been in hospital himself with numerous blood clots on his lungs. That's not necessarily connected because he's had cancer for a number of years. He's very seriously ill with cancer, so, could be that. And he's having numerous therapies. But funny, he now says, hope people will listen to this. Just shows you how the tide is turning. And I'm not sure if I have it on here. Oh, yes, guys, look at this. I warned you against this Giorgia Meloni fake right-wing person. Migrant arrivals in Italy have surged by more than 50% since Giorgia Meloni took over as Prime Minister. I told you she was fake, and you'll see my prediction for Italy. Look at this one. I'll just let you read that. Well, dead bodies stored at Wilshire Grit Depot as hospital morgue hits capacity. As you guys will know, we've got a massive amount of excess deaths here in the UK. Yeah, I quite enjoyed that one. There was something else I wanted to show you, however. I don't know if it was about the vaccine or... Yes, this was very interesting. I don't want to play it, but it's a little video from the city of Oxford where they are already installing things, as you can see there, to enact this 15-minute city with the zones. There have been hundreds of attacks on the bollards, people ripping them out, pouring in concrete to make it harder for them to redo them, vandalism. So this is... obviously, I'm not allowed to say much at the risk of course, I'm totally against any form of vandalism, totally against it. But as you can see, certain people are seeing that as a solution because they aren't being listened to and they've had enough of this agenda. Okay, so yes, Bridgen. By the way, guys, remember this fact. It's really going to help you win arguments. When you hear these media shills or your friends and family telling you that all these sudden deaths and heart problems are because people actually caught COVID. So because they caught COVID, it weakened their heart and it's absolutely nothing to do with the preventative measures. Well, in New Zealand, during the whole of 2021, they had zero COVID because they had a zero COVID policy. So no one got COVID, or maybe one person. There was no one in New Zealand getting COVID in 2021, but this was rolled out, right? And plenty of adverse events happen. So that proves in a year when no one was getting COVID, and the COVID rates were massively small in New Zealand all along, but it's the same rate of people getting problems with their heart because of this happened. So it just shows there isn't a link necessarily between you can't totally say, oh well, it's only because people caught COVID that they got the heart problems, because that proves that in a year with zero COVID, they still got the heart problems because of that. So just remember that. Elon Musk, I just wanted to say, come into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. It's another January 6th psyop. It must be a trap. It's to lure everyone who's got any grievance, or legitimate grievance, obviously, but who's developing a mentality of activism. It's to draw them out, to find out who the leaders are, who are leading people, and to be able to target them. So I think it's a trap. I don't trust that guy at all. I noticed a very interesting comment in a thread saying that LinkedIn is like a bloodbath because there's so many obituaries in there. Haven't checked it out yet. I don't know if I've got enough friends or whatever on LinkedIn to be able to see it. Please check that yourselves and get back to me. And I think, Ukraine thing as well, just to come back. I think it's all about getting rid of men. Yes, and I noticed I wanted to talk about some people here, but I've actually forgotten who they are. Never mind, we can always come back to them. By the way, Susan Mitchie, who was the communist, who was the main person in the SAGE team, was it the SAGE team, the psychological operations team that were pushing lockdowns and all the measures. She was this behavioral psychologist that was really pushing all these measures, and she was part of, I think, the SAGE team. She's now gone on to work for the World Health Organization. I want to show you on Wikipedia, her father worked with Alan Turing, and he was at Bletchley, a code breaker. So she's totally plugged in her father, obviously very connected to the secret services and high levels of government clearance and obviously the Official Secrets Act and all that sort of thing. So probably not surprising why she's found her way into top levels of government, bearing in mind her father's potential security clearance and what he would have been exposed to in his life. And her brother's head economist at Oxford as well, so everyone in the family's kind of plugged in. Her husband was something important in their world too. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that broadcast. I think I got through most of the little tidbits from recently that I wanted to chat about. I don't know if there was anything else on my getter here. Yeah, there was some migrants in Italy, that business. Yeah, so that's thank you for joining me. And again, I would love it if you supported me, gave my book a purchase, and gave me a nice review. Please don't forget the review. It would be wonderful. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be special. Just whatever you want to say, just put it in there. That would be gorgeous. I'll leave the link down below. But if you just put Lisa Lazuli 2023, it's going to come up with lots of my other books as well. But I will put the link in the comments when I upload this. So I hope everyone's doing well, having a good new year. Now this is over, I'll be able to focus on a lot of the personal readings that I have backing up for a long time. Very sorry about that, I know.